let's give it a couple more minutes. I can see participants are joining, and we're going to start very soon.
So I can't move the screen. You can only move the screen for me, right?
Correct.
Okay.
As I'm presenting. So let's aim to start in 30 seconds. The recording has been starting. I can see participants are joined still. All right, and off we go. Hi, everyone, and welcome to Brookmount's Gold 2025 Investor Call. I'm Ioannis, and I'm very excited to have you all here today. We are here to share updates on our progress, key milestones, and also share what lies ahead of us for Brookmount Gold. With that, it is my privilege to hand over to Niels Holquist, our CEO and Executive Director, who will provide us with a comprehensive overview of the broader strategy and key priorities. Niels, over to you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. It's been some time since we spoke last, but I think it's a good time because there has been a lot of development in the company over the past 9 months, I guess. In particular, the recent completion of the acquisition of our Indonesian operations, which is very significant for us and has been something in our calendar for a number of years now. And we managed to complete this process at the end of last year. And beginning in 2025, we now operate the Indonesian operations completely with responsibility for operations and cash flow. And it's an important development for us for obvious reasons, as we've discussed in the past. I also wanted to tell you a little bit about what's been going on with the company. In particular, I know a lot of people have been very interested in the progress of the audit, which is something that has been front and center of our focus for the last 12 to 18 months. We actually completed a very solid year in 2024, November. And we're happy that we were able to put together yet another increase in operating performance, both in terms of revenue and profits for the period. It's building up towards our strategy for the balance of 2025, which, apart from completing the acquisition of the Indonesian operations, also involves obviously the completion of our financial audits, which have been ongoing, as many of you know, for some time. And also we have clearly also the three operations in North America, which we haven't talked about for a while, but because the focus has been on Indonesia. But the strategy that we announced last year, where we plan to take these operations and back them into another vehicle to create a North American arm for Brookmount, is still current. And we will be resurfacing that proposal in the next few months, having completed our primary focus, which was to nail down the acquisition of Indonesia. So I will talk about Indonesia very briefly. The operation encompasses the original 50 hectares, which we had under our joint venture with our operating partner. And we are taking over all the operations, all the mining operations in that area that were previously attributed to the joint venture. We created a new workforce, basically with a group of contract miners from Java who had actually been working in the Indonesian operation prior, but we renegotiated the contract, signed them up for 12 months, and actually renegotiated the compensation system, which previously was a profit share, which we weren't particularly happy with. So we renegotiated, as you will see from the press release coming out shortly, in terms of the mining product, what they bring out. They're being paid on the basis of the amount of ore that they produce. So that is a more effective method for us to be able to build our operations, give incentive to our miners, and to maximize our output. So it was a flurry of activity, I have to say, the last 2 weeks in Indonesia, and we put on additional people into the mining staff, as I mentioned, and also the management team has been expanded, and we now have a pretty good group, and they are focusing on transitioning the operation from the previous system of management, which was not as focused on safety protocols and structure as we would have liked. So we're imposing some additional principles, particularly safety and equipment. PPE has been expanded. Shifts have been set, 8-hour shifts with shift briefings prior to the commencement. The CCTVs have been installed at all of the operating shafts, and the first couple of runs which we did, which was about 150 bags of ore over 2 days of mining out of only one shaft, produced a fairly attractive result, approximately 200 grams of doré, which this is only the first production that we've made, and this will be one of probably every week we'll have 3 productions, and which would make 12 productions per month. And that's only out of one shaft. So we will be introducing additional equipment, particularly hydraulic drills, which are much more effective in hard rock ore than the jackhammers we've been using. We're educating the miners in the use of those drills, and that is starting to have effect. And we believe that our operations, although only beginning at the beginning of the month, will be moving back into the area of what we had previously under the joint venture with our operating partner. So we're very excited that we can expand. That's really the production issue that we have. We're just looking at building the mining operations to produce more ore, because the average ore grade has been consistently between 1 to 2 grams per bag, or 20 to 40 grams per ton. And we will take advantage of that by simply maximizing, the amount of ore that's produced out of every shaft every month. So that is something that we have direct control over. Most importantly, of course, the cash that's generated by the business no longer goes into a receivable account, but goes into our own accounts and can be transferred between the US and Indonesia to assist in the development of the US side as well as Indonesia. And that's very important to us, and has been a strategy of our management for quite some time. So we're very happy that we managed to get that done. The audit is I had a conference call actually with the US branch of the audit firm of Hall Chadwick. It was formerly called Axcel. It's now called Aero, I believe, but they're out of Florida. They're the PCAOB agent for our audit firm. The audit actually of the business as such, the US GAAP audit, was effectively completed about a month ago, and the paperwork was forwarded to the PCAOB agent to review and to sign off. And the conversation we had with that firm on Saturday leads me to believe that our press release we issued, I think, last week about the audit being completed within 30 days is definitely achievable. And so we hope that we'll have some very good news by the middle of February on the audited financial statements. which I know all of you have a particular interest in being completed. Our ongoing strategy is built around the Indonesian operations. Now that we have full control, we will be looking to inject additional capital into those operations, particularly to build the production and to make profits, to build the profit level quickly so that we can move the money back into the US and start to develop also the North American operations. We have, I think, a very good chance of developing an additional two or three mining shafts, which have been the two actually have already been developed, but we're not particularly focused on in the last few months. We have refocused and we are building those operations, and I think that the cash flow will be produced by these mining operations in Indonesia will be very close to what we have been reporting over the last couple of years as a joint venture in a very short space of time. So I think that's probably a general survey of what we've been doing. The audit has been, I know, in everybody's mind, and I'm very comfortable that we're very close to getting that process completed. The Indonesian operation has been a goal and a focus of ours for quite some time, at least 2 years, and that's now completed. So I do believe that 2025 will be a very exciting year for Brookmount shareholders. I think all I can say is I greatly appreciate your patience, and I think that your patience will be well rewarded in the ensuing months when you start seeing the financial results of some of our efforts over the past 2 years. So I think, Ioannis, maybe I'll just turn it across to questions and answers. People probably
Yes,
have some questions to ask.
yes, I've seen some people actually try to raise their hand. Now, at this stage, what we can actually facilitate is question and answer. So please, if you have a question, there's a Q&A section. You are more than welcome to put your question there, and we're going to do our best to answer this. Niels, please, my
Hmm.
apologies. I've gave you the wrong directions. To access the Q&A section, what you have to do is there are three
Hmm.
dots at the bottom of your screen. So if you click
Hmm.
there, you should be able to see a Q&A, and there's a number next to it highlighted in red, so you can actually see how many questions that have been raised already. So if you can click on that, and we can move forward to Q&A.
The screen, sorry, the screen, it says more. Is that it?
Yes, you click more, and then there's a Q&A section there. You should be able to access it.
Record, transcripts, apps, and reset to default. I don't see anything on Q&A. Sorry.
Hmm.
Sorry. Maybe you can. Oh, I see. I see. Wait a minute. It says Q&A down here. So,
Nice.
okay. I think I have what you want. Anonymous attendee, can you tell us the total diluted shares outstanding and give pro forma financial statements? Also, with all this cash in the former JV, why do you need to do any financing? Um, I'll answer on screen. I'll address that question verbally. Um, the the structure of the joint venture takeover is that there was a very small amount of cash and a balance which was attributable by the accumulated cash in the joint venture. You have to understand this is a 50-hectare property with an appraised valuation of close to $170 million by an approved valuer. So the valuation that we actually achieved is considerably less than that. So the cash that has been accumulated over over the past period of retained earnings, which was expressed as a receivable from the joint venture partner, has been converted into equity in the operation. So our 20-year asset has been basically reflected in the balance sheet as an investment. Um, Now,
Next
do we need
question.
to do any financing? As our shareholders will be aware, back in January of 2024, we filed an application under Regulation A to do an offering. I think it was at 2 cents. That offering, unfortunately, the SEC has been somewhat hidebound over that last 12 months. We have been back and forth with question and answers and so forth. And we haven't progressed the Regulation A. However, it's still outstanding, and I suspect that with the new administration, probably the SEC will come back very shortly with an approval, I would hope. And of course, that's not committed. It's in the hands of the SEC. So I'm just guessing. But at the end of the day, we would anticipate that Regulation A financing registration statement would be approved. We would hope, and that we would then set the price of that offering at the time. And that would be dependent on the share price prevailing at the time that we went effective. Uh, Meantime, we obviously have additional sources of financing, particularly following the completion of the audit. Many financing options will open up, which haven't been available to us in the past. So we would be using those and to fund our development and expansion over the next 12 months. Another question, what currently is our total accumulated profits of cash Brookmount has to use for other mines or acquisition? I think that's addressed by my previous answer
I think
about
all these questions they relate to the same question.
yeah,
I would
the
suggest
conversion of the accumulated cash into equity, carried equity in the new mining operations.
Mhm. So if you can scroll
Correct.
down, there are more questions coming up.
Hmm.
So the scroll function should be available now.
What is the offering for from John Landon? The offering was back in January, was basically for working capital, and I think you could describe it as being the same. But clearly, the objectives of the companies, most of them have been fulfilled in the short term, but the financing, of course, will always be something that we would like to have available for expansion. So the the application of the proceeds of the Regulation A financing would not be any different to what we originally planned back in the beginning of 2024, with the exception that we've already negotiated and closed on the acquisition of Indonesia. So, for example, the expansion and the launching of production in MacArthur Creek and Atlan and the completion of Moosehorn would all be on our target list in 2025. I'm not quite sure what this question, why are we raising dollars from issuing 125 million shares from Jane Hennessy? I think that every company issues shares to raise capital to expand the business. And I don't think we're any different from most other companies in that respect. I think 125 million was our issued capital. I think it's slightly higher than that now, but those issued capital amounts will vary, of course, from time to time. Assuming the business is successful, you'll always need additional capital to expand the operation and create more profits for shareholders. So that's sort of a self-answering question.
I can see a question related to IR. Will you
Will you
make
make Nils available for one-to-one calls with institutional investors, by all means, of course.
Of course, please,
More than happy to do that.
upon request, please send an email to ir@bmxigold.com and I'll be able to schedule a meeting based on the availability of Niels.
Absolutely. John Landon, when will other projects start up now that Talawan is running full speed? Well, Talawan is not really running full speed yet. It's crawl speed right now, but we will be building it up rapidly. But other projects, we've talked to Aaron Kimball, our geologist in Canada, about this, and he has already allocated some time and effort and a little bit of capital into looking at developing the Alaskan operations, MacArthur Creek and Atlin, because they're relatively low-hanging fruit. So we have, for example, some tailings that can be reprocessed to create some product, and they're more alluvial and much less hardcore mining required than we have, for example, in Indonesia. So we will be exercising our expansion capabilities in the next, I would say, in the second half of the year. I think the first half will be focusing very much on Indonesia, and the second half we'll look at building on the North American side. I have a question here, also anonymous. Pro forma for the acquisition, what are the shares outstanding? What is the cash balance? How much debt? Well, the acquisition really was of an existing business, which was not managed by us, but was consolidated by us. So the shares outstanding don't make any difference. There was really no stock issued with respect to the acquisition. The cash balance is the same cash that was declared in the audited statements, which you'll be seeing very shortly, which is to the tune of 20-something million dollars. I can't remember, but that will be allocated to the acquisition of the Indonesian assets, and it will be included in our fixed assets as an investment. Daniel Carden asks, can existing shareholders take part in the placement? Absolutely. If existing shareholders would like to take part in either the Reg A placement or additional placements, please contact our attorney or any one of us, and we'll be happy to discuss that with you. Who is the joint partner? It's no longer a joint partner. We had a joint partner, and now he's our friend, I guess you would say. But the joint partner is in the past and currently is, of course, a very prominent figure in the area where we operate. And he was former Army colonel, and he's been in the gold business for many years. He's very well respected. He's someone we know exceptionally well. We've built a relationship over 12 years with him, which is why we got to the stage where he was willing to begin discussions with us about 4 years ago on the question of taking over the business. And so we've been discussing that with him for a fairly lengthy period of time. And he is somebody who we will stay intricately involved with as we pursue this business. Indonesia is a very relationship-based atmosphere, and we understand. We know how to do business in that country very well. We've been doing it for a long time, so we will keep and maintain and develop that relationship as we go forward. Jane Hennessy, your current share, I'm not quite sure what she's saying. That double of your current share count, 125, and is based on Form 1. I'm not quite sure what that question is, but the share count has been increasing, yes, because we have been financing. Up until now, we have not had external sources of cash to to cover the overhead of running the business, even in terms of a relatively small overhead. So we have had to go back to shareholders on a regular basis to cover that shortfall in capital. However, going forward, and as I've stressed, and I will continue to stress, the reason that we completed this acquisition of the Indonesian assets is the primary reason is that we want an internal and a generic source of capital, and that's what the Indonesian operations will be giving us. So we won't have to be concerned about relying too much on shareholders to support our operation going forward. As a small company, as a small cap company, it's a fact of life that if you don't have, we've had operating earnings, but we haven't really been able to take advantage of that situation because of the structure of the joint venture. And that was something to do with the Indonesian law prevailing at the time of the deal and also the transaction that we negotiated with our partner. So we have been agitating for quite some time to change that, and now we've done it. And I would suggest that now we have a source of cash flow. We will have we'll be less reliant on our shareholders for that purpose. I have a comment from Debbie Sutherland. Do we have to fear another reverse split? I'm not sure when you should fear a reverse split. We only did one many, many years ago, but I've been a shareholder since 2009, which was before we acquired the company, and I understand her comments. But Brookmount 2009 was a very different animal to Brookmount 2025. So we did a reverse split in, I believe, 2019 or 20. After we completed the acquisition, that was because we had about 2 billion shares outstanding, and it made no sense. So we reduced it to 200 million, which in hindsight was an overcorrection. We maybe should have left it at 500. 200 million, as our attorney explained to us, was a very tight authorized capital and would not give us a lot of flexibility in terms of what we could be doing down the track. But there was a lot of pressure from shareholders at that time to make that decision, which we made. Unfortunately, as time went on, our lawyer's advice became correct, and we found ourselves in a situation where we didn't have enough flexibility to grow the company, and that's something that a small business does not want to have to experience. So we went through the hoops of increasing the authorized shares to 500 million, and that is something that we'll be sticking with. And I don't think that will change in the near future. However, on the question of reverse split, when we were approached by the New York Stock Exchange second board to discuss a listing, they volunteered that we would need a minimum share price of $4 per share to qualify for initial listing, and that may in fact require a reverse split. Now, at the point when our audit is completed and we're filing for an application to list on a recognized exchange like the New York Amex, and at the same time doing a secondary offering through a registered dealer, then I think if we need to do a reverse split, so be it, because the company at the end of that process will be a different animal to the one that it was before the process. So I'm sure shareholders would accept that as being part of what we have to do. Asking another way from Anonymous, what was the total purchase price of the acquisition? I think I've already been through that. So that was actually, the question is a good one. That was in fact funded with cash on hand. It was, but it simply took that cash from a receivable and reclassified as an investment. And there was a very small payment of cash and no issuance of shares. So will the spin-off be through another public mining company? The company that we have under advisement on the spin-off of the mining assets is actually a company in the solar energy space. But it has had mining assets in the past. So, and we are very close to the principal. And I think that there will be every reason to suggest that we will work very well with them in developing Brookmount US as an independent subsidiary. Haida Raja is asking, is the audit actually going to be completed? It feels like we've been kicking the can down the road for a few years now. Interesting comment. Um, yeah, I'm sure a lot of people have that same comment. I mean, I will just say that, you know, my discussion with our auditor on Saturday morning led me to believe that the can is about to land in its rightful place next month. So that's all I have to say on that. Will any of the mining sites have a technical report attached? I believe the market would like to know what Brookmount's mining deposits look like. We have done independent analysis of several core samples, ore samples, I'm sorry, of our deposits, and we've had them evaluated by SGS in Singapore. SGS is an international mining, how do you say, I guess, analytical body, and they come up with independent analysis of ore deposits, including gold. So we came back with, we sent them 7 samples and they came back. 3 of those samples were in excess of what they call 10,000 parts per million, which implies that they are very high ore grade and they would need to do additional sampling in order to get a handle on how much higher they were over that 10,000 parts per million limit. So yes, we've started that process. We have not yet drilled and got JORC or 43101 type analysis, but we are in lockstep with SGS in building a picture and an overall assessment of the ore grades of our property. However, having said that, immediately next to our property is also a 50-hectare property which had a federal license, what they call an IUP license out of Jakarta, and that company has had a license to do open cut mining, which it has been doing for several years. By all accounts, and they're very secretive about how they conduct their business, but by all accounts, they are down to about 1 kilometer depth, and they are producing around 37,000 ounces of gold per year. So I'm fairly comfortable that our ore grades are sufficient to justify significant increases in profit over the next 12 to 18 months. I think a question anonymous, please directly answer the question, how many shares are outstanding? I think at the moment, approximately 140 million. And it sounds like there will be zero cash. How much debt is there pro forma? What estimated 2024 operating income? Well, the operating income from 2024, I think, has been already filed with OTC Markets. And I think there's a full analysis of our balance sheet and profit and loss in those accounts. I'd suggest I would refer you to those accounts on OTC Markets, and I would suggest you keep an eye out for the audit when it comes out very shortly. When will the Talawan asset be 100% paid off so BMXI can keep the entire net profit? I believe before the end of June, without making too many rash statements. I think that the cash payment for Talawan would be taken care of probably by the end of June from cash flow, and from then on, we'd be cash flow positive in that business. Dean Chaff says possibly have an estimate of the revenue we may see out of the Canadian and US operations in 2025. I don't have, we don't have any estimates at this point because we haven't actually put together a mining plan, which would require capital, which we haven't yet allocated. So, but however, if you come back to me in 6 months, I'll be able to give you a much better answer than I've just given you. Suffice it to say, as I said, we have low-hanging fruit in Atlin and McArthur Creek. We do have tailings, I believe, in Atlin, which would be recoverable and could be processed for a relatively low cost. I don't have numbers on that yet, but I'll be talking to our geologist over the next couple of months when the dust settles on the Indonesian business, and we'll have a much better picture. John Landon, what management is doing about an IR plan moving forward? What is the management doing for promoting BMXI? I think I don't like the word promote, John, but our investor relations plan, I think I think Ioannis is doing a very good job, actually. My impression is that our information flow is quite high and quite comprehensive.
I can walk them through very quickly,
Yeah,
just to give them an idea.
sure.
So, because we have received a lot of questions about investor relations strategy.
Hmm.
So basically, this is a slide, but generally, at the heart of it, it's basically our approach to investor relations is really about trust and communication. So there are a lot of people and stakeholders that they don't just look for updates. Basically, you look for clarity, honesty, and also confidence to the company. So, and this is what reflects here. So, we basically have three pieces. The one is transparency and compliance, engagement, and strategic alignment. Transparency. Let me clarify a little bit. What is transparency? So basically, we believe by being upfront and clear about operation, finances, and plans, it does add value to what we keep mentioning about transparency. And it's really simple. It's really about being open, honest, and straightforward with you. Sometimes you notice that things don't always come the way we like, and that's what it means to be transparent. It's not going to be all good news. It's going to be the raw truth. So we go out there and we just make sure all the stakeholders are updated. They're up to date with the latest information. Um, and that's how Brookman sees it. And
Mm.
engagement. We see investor relations as pretty much two-way communications. It's not about just sharing updates. About listening to our investors, our shareholders, especially through emails we get. We actually receive the IR email. We actually note them down. We notify the executive team, and then we try to reflect those changes. And probably you've noticed that the website it's a creation of it. So there are a lot of information, trying to make sure that investors are actually able to find all the information regarding Brookmount. So we are really out there. And of course, we have alignment. So everything we share with you is tied to our bigger goals as a company. We're not just focused, on short-term wins. We are building long-term value. That means basically ensuring understanding of our strategy from acquisitions to growth plans, how we really position Brookmount for the future. So that's where we really aim to communicate to all of our stakeholders and, of course, the market. So the goal is really simple: be transparent, accessible, and stay aligned with what matters most for all of our stakeholders.
I think that's a good summary, and Ioannis, and I think the key is US is a disclosure-driven market, unlike Australia or UK where it's regulated. So disclosure is absolutely critical, and sometimes disclosure doesn't is not exactly what you want to hear, and sometimes it is. But at the end of the day, at least you know, and that's the most important issue that I believe Ioannis is trying to cover. That all of what we do is apparent and clear, and nothing is hidden, and there are no surprises that anyone would want to find. For example, we've been working on this situation with Indonesia for as I said, for 4 years, and people don't necessarily know the process that goes on to achieve something like that, but it's what it is. And at the end of the day, when it gets completed and your business is reconstructed because the operations are significantly improved or changed. For example, this gives us a chance to impose our operating methods on what is traditionally, how do you say, a very traditional mining business. And we are industrializing, if I can use that term, and we're
Hmm.
regularizing that business. It's a process, and it will take time, but it will produce dividends. And fundamentally, what I've found out, for example, and I'm giving this to you as a fresh off the boat, but what I've found is that the ore grade average, we were focusing on ore grades to an extent, 2 grams, 3 grams, 4 grams. It really doesn't matter. At the end of the day, when you do for example, a heap leaching operation, you take 25,000 tons of ore, you pull it out of the earth and you put it on top of the leaching pad. You pick high grade, low grade, zero grade, whatever. It's all mixed. But at the end of the day, you get maybe 1, maybe 2, whatever grams. And it's just a matter of how much you pull out of the ground. So our strategy is, and we know operators around who are performing a volume-driven strategy. Right next to us is an operation been going about 4 or 5 years longer than we have. Started out about the same size and is currently doing it 1,000 bags per day. 1,000 bags is that's 50-kilo bags. That's about 100 kilos of ore per day. So that's a kilo. Some 1,000 kilos. I'm sorry, 1,000 kilos of ore. That's like 1 kilo of gold per day. That's a significant production, and we can achieve those levels in the next 12 months with the right sort of investment and the right sort of support. So that's disclosure. But bad, good, whatever. It's as long as you disclose, and we will keep our investors informed in every sense of what we're doing, and keep them absolutely up to date with where we are and how much money they'll be making with us in the next 12 to 18 months. So we will. Our door is always open. Ioannis is always open to answering questions. I'm always open to answering questions. Any one of our directors can be contacted for discussion. And we hope that you understand that, and that we will always be there to answer.
All right, next question.
I think we're out of questions,
I
actually.
think
There was a
yes.
James Keller. What is the next milestone after the audit? How long is a piece of string, James? I guess the next milestone would be to achieve 500 bags a day in our operation in Indonesia, which I think we'll be able to achieve in a couple of months. So that's what we're focusing on at the moment. We're adding equipment. We're making things better. We're building new ball mills. We're doing what we have to in order to make a more efficient and a more profitable operation, and which can be supremely efficient. 1,000 bags a day is a very impressive operation for what you would call a traditional mining operation. So I think we have a very good future in this business.
All right. I think we came to a close. Do you have anything else to add up, Niels?
No, no,
No?
that's it. I'm done. Thank you very much, everybody.
I want to sincerely
Appreciate your
thank,
time.
yeah, all of you for taking the time to join us. Just let you know that if you want to revisit, there's going to be a recording available on our website. Yes, if you have any more questions, please don't hesitate to send it to us at ir@bmxigold.com. Thank you, Niels.
Thank you very much, all. Appreciate your time.